Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders like the founders of P90X, Baby Einstein, Atari, many more, how they overcome big challenges in life and business. This is part of the e-commerce mastery series where top sellers and experts teach you what really works to boost your e-commerce business. I am very excited. Today we have Omar Sayyed, who's co-founder and CEO of Ties.com, Scarves.com, Allen.com. It started in 2000, and they started off literally fulfilling orders out of a co-founder's living room, and they've managed to grow into the world's largest online men's and women's accessories retailer. Omar, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Very excited. I've listened to a few of your, actually a lot of your interviews, and excited to be on here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And you know what? Looking at you makes me want to up my game. Because you dress for success. You dress impeccably. Looking at your pictures online, and now we were commenting before, I was like, obviously, being the founder of Ties.com, Scarves.com, I'm going to have you tell me what you're wearing here. So you have to explain the tie and
Sure.
and the pin there.
Yeah. So the tie is a Ties.com, a cherry blossom tie. So you can go on there. It's one of our really popular sellers. Actually, one of those ties where no matter where it is that I wear it, and no matter where I go, I at least get one person who approaches me to tell me either they love this tie or that they want to buy it and where they get it from. So it's one of our popular ties. I'm really, really happy about this design. So excited.
So Omar, since it's Inspired Insider, my question is, what's been the lowest moment and what's been the proudest moment? What's been the lowest moment professionally?
So I came into a company that had, an existing culture. And I don't want to say that the culture was stagnant, but it was there. And the bifurcation of what the culture was and where I wanted to take was in many ways apart. And there were idiosyncratic things that were absolutely important to me personally that I wanted to bring in, that a lot of people, when I came on, applauded and wholeheartedly took on and embraced, and that's what they were waiting for. But, I had an existing staff that was very, staunchly didn't believe in it,
Like what? What was something that you wanted to bring in that?
Okay. So I wanted to focus on social media, and I had somebody, I'm not going to name names, but I had somebody who, pretty high up in the company, getting paid a lot of money, and was part of our brain trust. He literally looked at me in the eye and said, social media is a fad and will go away. And I looked at him and I thought to myself, either this guy's a genius or he's an idiot. That's like when you have moments like that and you think to yourself, okay, I need to make a decision immediately about this person, because this is, because of their position and because of their influence in the company, they're going to affect other people. And so this is not, if I'm rowing in this direction, this person wants to row in this other direction, or he doesn't believe that he should be rowing in this direction. That's difficult. Even if you convince them, or even if you pull your rank card, if they don't believe in your mission and they don't believe in what you're doing, they're wholehearted. Their heart isn't in it, right? So they're not. They don't have the two P's. They don't have passion in the company.
Yeah.
That was probably something that was.
And they could sidetrack other people. It depends on their personality. If they're vocal about it, then they start pulling people towards their end and then away from.
And it's polarizing, right? So then now that you're developing this culture, now you have this polar. But nevertheless, you were asking me about my low point. That was probably my lowest point, because one of the questions I was asked when we were going through this process, somebody asked me, what's the least favorite thing that you'd like to do? And I think this is probably true for everybody, but for me personally, it's to fire people, right? Nobody wants to come in and fire people. Nobody wants to fire people in general. And so that's something that, I had said to them. And so then I was looking at this, a thing where I was looking at, okay, well, these people, I need to cycle through them. If I really believe in this Jack Welchian way of running a business, these are the wrong people for me. This is not the right thing. And I want to be respectful about the process, but I also have a fiduciary responsibility to the, board members, to people who have, the stakeholders of the company. So what do I need to do? I've been brought on to make decisions. But that was the lowest point for me.
Yeah.
That was really, really tough to make those decisions and say, like, listen, this is the direction that we're going to. And then there's, of course, I'm not perfect. You have this self-doubt. I mean, even, you and I talking, this is the first interview I'm doing, and I'm super nervous about it. And I've probably repeated myself a million times, saying the same stuff. I'm going to watch this and probably...
It's only internally that you think that,
I'm probably going to watch this in shame for hours. It's going to take me like 6 hours to watch 40 minutes. Because I'm going to pause it every 2 minutes. But yeah, that was the lowest point for me too.
So did you end up getting rid of that person?
I got rid of a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we brought on people who believed in who were part of the 2Ps.
Yeah.
But I also wanted people who were also a better culture fit. There were people who left the company who weren't necessarily bad. They just weren't part, like what I wanted to build, they weren't a part of. They didn't necessarily believe in the vision. They didn't believe, we should really divest from Wild Ties and really focus on ties.com. They really believed, and there's nothing I can do about it. I know now that was a good decision for me, but back then you have these moments of self-doubt, like, oh my God, what if I'm making a bad decision? I have people here who have children, I have people who have mortgages. Those decisions I don't take lightly. I spent many, many sleepless nights, many nights pulling all-nighters, a lot of gray hairs, but like ultimately, like I said, I think I said one time, the universe always finds a way to test your result, right? So, but as long as you show up every single day and grit, right? That's what it comes down to. I think you asked me, I said, what is the one thing that you want people to take away? And I think we talked a little bit about talent acquisition and talent retention. But one of the other things I want people to take away here is grit. You absolutely always have to have grit. Like if you have grit, the one factor, there's a really beautiful TED Talk, and I don't know why, because maybe I had too much coffee, I can't remember her name. Angela something. She has a
TED Talk about grit?
Yeah, about grit. She says it most beautifully. So she worked on Wall Street, and then she went and worked for
Angela Duckworth?
I think so. Yes. So she left and went and worked for public school system, then went and did a PhD. And so she did this study on what elements that make people successful. And so she interviewed and she went through all this process, and she went to these schools and she figured out the one element that makes somebody successful. The one thing that kept on coming back. It wasn't intelligence. It wasn't humor. It wasn't good looks. It wasn't hype. It was grit. So if you have this unwavering if you have this like unwavering...
it's funny you say this, Omar, because yesterday my wife told me to get the book Grit. She wrote a book. I think it's The Power of Grit or something like that.
Yes.
And she told me to get this. I need to listen to it. My homework is I need to listen to it, summarize it, report back on it, and for purpose of the kids. For raising the kids of grit. And that, like you were saying, I had no idea that was the author till you just said that, but that's my homework for my wife to have to do that. So
that's awesome. I love that your wife challenges you and forces you to like get out of your comfort zone. My wife and I do the same thing. That's awesome. But yeah, that's a great... In fact, what's funny? My wife is the one who turned me on to the TED Talk.
Really?
We're married to smart women.
That's I give all credit there.
Yeah. That's fantastic. That's awesome. My wife turned me on to Angela Duckworth and to her TED Talk. But grit is something that I think I've always internalized, but I've never been able to sort of come up with that right sort of word that summarizes it all.
Right.
But having grit is really important. Waking up every single day in the face of like, you come into work and sales are down, culture is bad, or people aren't happy, and there's an onslaught of like, things you got to fix, and meanwhile, the company's hemorrhaging. I'm sure a lot of people have had similar stories, but how do you get past that? How do you every single night go to bed, at 10, 11 o'clock at night, because you've been up, like looking at the next campaign that's being pushed out, and you're measuring, and then you wake up the next day, you come on, and people are like grit, right? So that's
Thanks you for mentioning that. Yeah. So on the flip side, Omar, the proudest moment. What's been one of the proudest business moments for you?
So many things. I think one of our proudest moments was when we realized we'd made the right decision with switching over and focusing all of our efforts and divesting from neckties and not because neckties.com is a great domain, right? So that was a tough decision. Divesting from wild ties. Another proud moment for us was when we realized we'd made the right decision about controlling our supply chain, and that was probably a great moment for us to sort of sit back and reflect on this really great accomplishment. What else? I mean, sort of a lot of wins, and this doesn't sound like a big deal because there's a lot of softwares you can deploy now that does this for you. But for us to take our site and make it responsive, because we do our own software, Shopify does it for you. You don't have to worry about it. Right. Volusion, I think BigCommerce.
So what made you decide to go with your own internal software as opposed to like Shopify or one of these other ones?
Yeah, well, when we first started, I think like Volusion or Shopify, or I'm sorry, not Volusion.
Like BigCommerce or something?
BigCommerce, yeah. I think they were the only ones in the space.
Magento is a big one.
Yeah. So I think they were the only ones in the space, if they were even in the space. But we started so early, there was nothing there.
You had to.
It was sort of de facto for us to do it. And Shopify wasn't there. But even now, I think it gives us a competitive advantage over everybody else who's out there because we have such a customizable platform. It's written in multi languages, and so it's and we can optimize it on a code level anywhere we want, and we can add any features we want anywhere we want. We're not constricted to anything, so I think that gives us really a great competitive advantage.
So yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, what's important is good. This is a really great question. Like what were some of our big wins? But I think one of the things you were asking me about, your employee happiness, like what do you do? One of the things that we try to do is celebrate these small wins, no matter how small they are, right? So I don't know if you can tell or not, but like we have sort of like alcohol.
I did see that.
So
make people do shots.
And single malt scotches and whiskeys there. But yeah, we try to celebrate any little wins we have. Like even if we launch a feature that we've been working 2-3 weeks, this is a small win, and you should always take the time to celebrate those wins, no matter what. In life, wins are so hard to come by, or rather, the frequency of which the wins come by, or
right.
sort of in between. And a lot of it is really sort of the drudgeries of going home, and like your little one is sick, and you got to pick up milk, and you forgot to pick it up, and those things. Like it's easy to fall into this like trap of like, oh man, now I got to go do this, or this didn't happen. Oh, and the bank like didn't transfer the funds, or like all the stuff that like we deal with. And then, like when these little things happen, it's so easy to just be like, all right, let's move on to the next project. But like take the time, to stop and smell the flowers. But you take the time and you stop and you say, hey, like great job development. This is a really great product, and thank you design for putting all those assets together. Marketing, thank you for doing a great job of launching this. And thank you for everybody else for taking the time to help test this feature and push it out. Without you, we can't do it. And you spend even if it's like 20-30 minutes, a half an hour, you spend like talking about the features, and that's really important to celebrate all your wins and not just your big wins, because what's a really big win? You end up raising a round, or that's a really great reason to go out and like celebrate and have drinks. Small wins are equally as important.
It's true. Yeah. I remember talking to one founder. That's what they said. They said they never really sell. They had this bottle of champagne when they hit, a certain number in their company, whatever it is, 7 figures or something. And then that became bigger, and then they never broke open that bottle. And they still said they hadn't when we had talked. So
it makes it like, especially if your goal is set so high, or you have a hard time getting traction to get to that goal.
You just keep moving it forward.
More daunting, right? It makes it that much more daunting to get that goal. So then you start, it's really great to have these really great goals, but all those milestones to which that help you get on there should also be celebrated. And I'm not saying you should celebrate mediocrity by no means, because I talk about this on my blog. I am not one that celebrates mediocrity, but nevertheless, it's really great to say, hey, our vision is this, and our goals are these, but how great is it that we're capable of growing our customer base, right? How great is it that we are able to grade all these 5-star reviews? How great is it that we just launched these brand new line of neckties? How great is it that we just launched this seamless feature on Ties.com? How great is it that we just launched a responsive site that for a company that had been around since 1979? I'm really proud of Alan, for instance. So Ties.com is wonderful sort of evolution. But Alan was a company that we bought that had been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And we bought it from, I think, like second or third generation. And the acquisition was, but when we took over the company, like very little product development, no control over supply chain. In fact, a very convoluted supply chain and a very convoluted process, very complicated sales process, virtually no retail whatsoever. And we brought this puppy, basically incubated it and have built it into what it is today. And we're very proud of that. And we're competing against really big boys, right? So we're competing against Vineyard Vines, really great company, great culture, tons of money, tons of outside money, geographically in the right place. But yet we're competing against them and doing a really good job of it. So,
how long did it take, Omar, from the beginning discussion to acquire the company when you first started discussing it to finalizing the process?
Scarves.com or Alan?
Alan. Yeah. Because when I was reading the background on it, I think the company was from 1970s or something.
Yeah, 79. Yeah,
and so it was a family company.
Family company. Yeah. Had been operated by a husband and wife who were really wonderful. Had done a really great job. We got a phone call. So we got a phone call from the then owner or proprietor rather, and he was like, "Listen, I am in the midst of sort of a buyout. And we have some inventory. They don't want to take my inventory. You're interested in this?" And we're like, I remember when somebody walked into my office and gave me this story, and I looked at her and I said, "Would they sell to us?" And she goes, "I don't know. I can ask." I said, "Well, hold on." So back then we used to have offices. There wasn't all this. So we're in the same space. We used to have sort of offices, and my office was across the lobby from Morgan's, and we had basically I had a glass wall and he had a glass wall, so we always looked at each other, and we used to yell at each other all the time. So if people walked in, people would just hear us yelling. Actually, across the lobby. So we were across the lobby, we would always yell at each other. And so I look over, I'm like, "Hey, I need to come talk to you." He goes, "All right." So I literally walked across the lobby and sat down. I'm like, "Hey, this is happening." He goes, "We get a flight to New York." So he had immediately had the same thinking I did. So we called him up and said, "Listen, don't sign anything. We're going to fly out there. I'm going to have a conversation with you." So we flew out and he met us. And we walked into this the steakhouse and just had a conversation. We're like, "Would you be interested in something like us? And this is, we'd like to know. We'd like to take a look at under the hood and want to know what it is." And I think we made that decision in a weekend, and within 2 weeks we were signing paperwork.
Really?
Because our growth isn't dependent on acquisitions because we don't have the money for it, right? But what we really wanted was the brand itself, because we really believed in their mission and we believed in their product, and we thought it was a really great product. And it was important for us to, if we wanted to continue participating in building a brand, and we wanted to acquire that brand as part of the Wild Attire family, we wanted that to be part of Ties.com. It was important for us to make that move. And I think 3-4 weeks, no longer than that, to make that acquisition.
That's crazy, Omar. So in that amount of time, had you or him had experience with that? How do you even know how to structure that type of thing? Yeah. So there are different ways about going through. I thought you were going to say 8 months or something. That's what I thought you were going to say.
No. So sometimes you make strategic acquisitions, other times you make it for revenue, right? So we knew that if the right deal comes along, you make the acquisition, because for us it may. I read a lot because I told you this. So I read a lot, and Jeff Bezos is probably somebody I read a lot about. So anything that he is in, I listen to, and his philosophy is that they buy purpose-driven companies, and they buy companies that make strategic sense to them. Yeah. So in other words, they're really good at supply chain, right? Nobody does supply chain better than them.
Yeah.
So they buy companies, Zappos, Quidsi. They buy these companies because Quidsi fit their model, right? They could take Quidsi, apply what they do really well, which is logistics, and then basically absorb all of its users, right? So it's a very simple model. It makes strategic sense for them to buy these purpose-driven companies. So what Quidsi wanted to do with diapers.com is make sure that diapers are readily available, or any children's paraphernalia or parents. It was like the go-to website for parents. If you had a child between X amount of age in 2010 through 2014 and beyond, you were aware of Quidsi. You knew that diapers.com existed, and you knew it. So they've done this really great job of marketing themselves and putting themselves in front of people. And so Amazon bought them. Again, it was a strategic purchase for them. But same thing for Zappos, right? Zappos did something that they did really well, which is customer service and end user delivery. They really did a better job than Amazon did in many ways. And so for Amazon, it made sense to make a strategic purchase. And so for me, as soon as I saw this, I looked at it as a strategic opportunity, because even at that time at the time when we went through the acquisition, we didn't have our supply chain, but I knew that we had a better supply chain process, especially when we had that initial conversation with him over the phone when I told him I wanted to come see him. I asked him a few questions. He was very forthright about it. And I realized, like, hey, we have a much better system put in place. And because I had, remember sort of your long-term goals, because I had long-term goals about where I wanted to take it, I knew that I would do a better job of that process. And I would have greater control over this process and probably deliver a better quality product. And I was willing to take that bet. I was willing to take that risk, and we took it on.
Yeah. So you could see, okay, they're here, but with our process, we could plug that in and get them to a much higher level.
Yeah. So if it makes sense for you, for the business model that you're in, absolutely, you make that. And, of course, there's varying philosophies. Does it pull away from your own brand? Does it, pull away from your attention? Absolutely, you have to consider all those things, but you can only make those considerations, for yourself and for your own company.
Yeah. So, Omar, I want to point people towards a couple of your sites so they can check them out. And then I have one last question. And I don't know if I'll remember all of your sites, but I know there's ties.com, scarves.com, alyn.com, ALYNN. And then I think, what other ones do you have? I mean...
so we actually acquired another company recently, Infectious Wearables, also a really great niche brand that have been around, I think, since the 80s or 90s, I can't remember. But that site needs to go through a lot of love,
what is it
tender
called?
love and care. Infectious Wearables. I think it's iwearables.com. So Infectious Wearables produces neckties for a very specific segment of the market. So people who are in healthcare and they wear, let's say, a Zika tie, so it has a DNA of a Zika virus on the tie itself. Very specific.
Yeah, that is very, like, do you want a life-threatening disease on your tie? Like, we will make it for you.
Yeah, we have that for you. So iWearables is the other one. That's
hilarious.
Again, really great story behind it, and we've known of the company and I've worked with the company for a while. And so it was because we have, what we do really well. It made sense for us to make the acquisitions. Probably my blog is another thing. I write not as often as I should, but I have a very personal goal this year where I'm trying to publish at least 2 articles a week.
That's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, and my goal is to help entrepreneurs who are sort of in a similar stage as I am and are dealing with the same drudgeries as I am, and or as we have rather, and talk about the things that are, at some point you just have to focus, and at some point you have to pay attention to things that are really important to you as opposed to everything else that's happening.
Yeah.
Noise versus signal that Jason Friedman always talks about, because in any situation it's much more important. And I really want to champion this idea of like emotional intelligence. What's a really great story of emotional intelligence? Ariana Huffington just joined the Uber board. And I think what the CEO said of Uber, he was like, listen, I need some emotional intelligence on my board. So we asked Ariana. And it's a really great story, right? So it's this, it goes to show you how important EQ is in relations to IQ. Because I think a lot of companies focus on IQ and not necessarily on EQ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then Sock Genius, does that have a separate site? I see that takes up a lot of real estate on Titus.com. Like when you look at it, I'm sure there was a strategic decision there, but, if you look at the upper, the top third of your site, it's one big header and it's just Sock Genius.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Earlier you asked the process that we go through for product development, and Sock Genius is probably a really great story for that. And if your listeners made it this far to listening to this, I'm sure they're going to enjoy the story.
They only get the secret sauce at the end.
That took us 8 months to develop that product when we went through a very, very rigorous process. So my creative director and I took more of an active role in this process because it was a new product category that we were introducing. He was very particular about the colors that we were using, the designs that we were using, and I was very particular about the fit and feel. Right. So prior to this, I only used to wear Happy Socks, and for me, that was a really great brand, and I really liked the way it felt. So I always knew that if I ever wanted to do socks, that I wanted to do something that was better than that. I wanted something that gave me that same sense, that same sensation, but it felt better. Because if I was ever going to make something, or if I was ever going to switch my socks, it was going to be for a better reason. And I feel like even with, I think we're now in our third iteration. I feel like even with our first iteration of those socks, we've done a really fantastic job, and it was up to par. And I can, I can attest to that only because I wear them all the time. Yeah. I even wear our production samples that come in and, don't even make it to production. I still have them and I covet them and I keep them. So that went through a really rigorous process of needle points and the type of.
I'm looking at all of them right now. Yeah.
And then, he was really focused on the color and the design.
Jeez, there's a lot. There's a lot of them.
Yes, there's a lot.
Holy cow.
That's a category that has done well for us, and we're very happy with it. And we have tons of people who are really, really happy with those socks. And so, yes, it rightly deserves a lot of real estate, and we're happy to give it to it.
Yeah, I figured there was a reason why a third of your site is it wasn't by chance. And talking to you, obviously, it's by measuring and the metrics. So yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
You have one question that I hope you're going to ask me, but go on.
Go ahead. What is that?
What is a business idea that I'm not going to do anything with that I could just give out?
So, a business idea. I don't ask that enough. I should always ask that at the end.
You should always ask that.
Yeah. So a business idea that someone else should steal.
Yes.
And you're not going to do anything with them. Yeah.
Yeah. Partly because I don't have enough focus to be able to do this, and also partly because I'm not a developer. So either an extension or an actual chat app. I know there's tons of them, and how do you compete against WhatsApp, but or Facebook now? But an app that allows you to insert memes. There's no
insert
app.
Memes.
Insert memes. Yeah.
So where, actually, like social media?
No, so let's say my wife and I, we meme each other all the time. But let's say you've just come across a really funny meme, or rather you're talking and there's a meme in your head where you're like, dude, this would be perfect. I want to send this to my wife because we're having this conversation and we're talking about this. I want to send this meme. It'd be really great. Just the same way you can do that now with what is it called? Memify or whatever that app is, that extension. I think even Twitter allows you to insert those, but having that or having a chat that allows you to do that, I love that idea. And I think the other thing is producing really great WordPress themes. So there's a lot of companies that produce a lot of themes, a lot of independent developers that develop a lot of themes. But the problem is, number one, the exclusivity of it, because I can come onto any site and be like, that's a Shopify site, that's a WordPress site, that's this, that's that. But producing something that A, you sell in very limited numbers, but B, are so unique in its design. Everybody does the same thing, this big banner at the top and,
Right.
sort of articles or products at the bottom. There's nothing wrong with that. I think I use one. I've customized a few things on my blog, but, there's nothing wrong with that. However, for the longest time, I think like a lot of conferences I go to, there's Rob Whaling. I don't know if you know him. He does MicroConf.
Yeah, Rob, yeah, sure. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
Rob. Yeah.
So I remember this one year I was MicroConf, and I swear everybody I spoke to, I was like, hey, you're a developer? Why don't you develop this? Here's an idea for you. Nobody took me on, and I happily will give this idea to anybody. But what if like you develop a really great theme that you sold to like a limited number of people, right? So let's say it's a theme that you develop that you sell out like 5 seats. So 5 people have it. So any given time, just 3.5 people that use it. 3 people use it sort of every single day. 1 person that has bought it but isn't using it, and then 1 person that like buys it and takes it down. And so 3.5 people use it at any given time. So also you're not going to run into this theme a lot, but you sell it at a higher price. I would be happy to spend a lot more money, and I don't have to like devote my time to learning how to code something. I don't have to like disturb my developers. I don't have to do any of that, but yet I get to buy something at a higher price that nobody else has, but yet it's also very unique. And that's the thing. And if you've ever been to like these theme sites, they're a little different, but for the most part, they're about the same, right? So, and I don't even know whether or not that it's a marketplace anymore. Somebody's probably listening to this going, "Oh my God, WordPress themes! What an idiot!" But I've always felt like that there's a lack of that in there because I've had personal struggles. In fact, at one point, because I was like learning how to code, I was like with a developer, and like we coded my own site. I actually reached out to Neil Patel with this really cool site. I was like, hey, I'm going to rip off your site. He's like, no problem, go for it. He's like, do you want me to send you the files? I'm like, yeah, sure. So he like sent me a zip file site that I really loved. And
He's like, let me save you the trouble of ripping me
yeah. Yeah, I told him, I'm like, hey, dude, I really love the site. Can I use it? He goes, no problem. Here's the zip file. So he's like, it's super cool. But yeah, so if there's anybody out there, or any of your listeners who are like solopreneurs or wantrepreneurs who want an idea, there it is.
All right.
Yeah.
Omar, this has been fantastic. Thank you for going through the journey and so many different things it takes to run and grow a business. Everyone should check out ties.com, scarves.com, all the other .coms that they own that are 4-letter domains. Omar, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.